Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jessica, and I'm pleased to be your host for today's Get to Know Early Childhood Studies session, which is part of Ryerson's virtual open house happening this week, November 9th to 13th, as well as next week, November 16th to 20th. Ryerson has shifted to an essential services model to help prevent the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is why we are with you on your screens and not with you in person. We have put together a series of virtual sessions in order to share information and connect with you from the comforts of your own home. Ryerson is working diligently to provide students with fulsome experiences while maintaining the health and safety of our community. So we're really excited to be able to offer these sessions for you. There are many sessions taking place across these 2 weeks, so we do encourage you to check out our website and register for any other sessions that may be of interest to you. Now, before we go too far into the session, I do want to get into some Zoom housekeeping tips for those of you who may be new to the platform. We encourage you to ask questions. We have many faculty and staff members that are here to assist with answering your questions throughout the session. To do this, move your mouse to the bottom of your Zoom screen where you'll find a Q&A pod. That's where you'll click on this. It'll open up a dialog window where you can type your questions throughout the presentation. If you're having any audio or visual issues, feel free to also flag this in the Q&A pod as well, and one of our staff members will assist you with this too. You may also rearrange your screen in any way that works best for you. And note that rearranging your screen does not impact the way that other viewers are looking at the screen. It'll only change yours. So feel free to make things bigger or smaller or whatever works for you. This presentation will also be closed captioned to ensure accessibility. If you require closed captioning, please select that option at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Lastly, this session is being recorded, and all of our virtual open house sessions will be available on our website at a later date. Keep in mind that this does not include the Q&A pod, so if you happen to ask a question or see another student asking a question, feel free to take a screenshot or make a note of it, so then that way you can refer to it later on. Now on the next slide, you will see our land acknowledgement. So even though we are not physically on Ryerson's campus, we do feel that it's important to recognize the land in which our university exists. So as we move to the next slide, you will see that on here, and I will read off that land acknowledgement. So Toronto is in the dish with one spoon territory. The dish with one spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. So thank you again for those of us who are joining us. I would now like to introduce our first speaker today, who is going to be talking a lot about our early childhood studies program. So I'd like to turn things over to our director, Dr. Kathleen Peets. Feel free to take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jess. Welcome to everyone. I'm going to go into the slides that really are about all of the great things that are going on in our school, and start with a big, huge green welcome to you all. Thank you so much for your interest in our school. And as Jess said, I am the director of the school, and I'm very happy to have you come and learn about our program. And I'm not going to be here alone to tell you about our program. I actually am joined by several people from the early childhood studies community, and some of whom are going to speak to you, but we'll all be available at the end to answer questions. So do take note of the different roles that, that members of our team representing the school today have, and then you'll be able to perhaps ask them questions later on. So first I want to introduce Maria Burgos, who is our Student Affairs Coordinator. You may have, if you come to our school, you'll get to know Maria very well, supporting our students in so many ways. I'm also joined by Jennifer Butterly, who is the manager of the part-time program and our collaborative programs as well, the BA BEd program that she will speak to a little bit or answer your questions on. I'll give you some background on that. I think many of you may be interested in our BEd program. And one of our own students, David Mapeda is here as well, and I'm very glad to have David here. He will be greeting you later, and he is a fourth-year student currently in the program, so he can speak from a student perspective, which I think is so important. Okay, so I wanted to start off my presentation by really talking about the broader community that early childhood studies exists within. So we are part of the Faculty of Community Services. That means that we're very rooted in community and in people. And these are all of the many programs that are also running in the Faculty of Community Services: child and youth care, disability studies, midwifery, nursing, nutrition, occupational and public health, social work, urban and regional planning. The reason I like to include all of these programs alongside ours is because of our shared values and our even shared courses. You actually will have the opportunity to take courses in some of these programs, and we have relationships with many of the faculty and students going back and forth between the programs and taking classes with them. So it's important, I think, to start off and think about the broader context that we exist in as a school. So yes, we think that we have a very special place here for sure. We are the oldest school of early childhood studies in the country. So I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. I will talk about this use of the term studies, because at that time in 1959, we were actually a school of early childhood education. So many of you may have some questions about that and about our name. I wanted to give a broad introduction to this slide and the components in it before I go into some of the details. I have some links there, and I wanted to talk a little bit in more detail about some of these things that I believe really make us a special place. So one of the things about our program is that as a university degree, a four-year degree, we have members of our teaching staff who have done such interesting work, and that is really the job of university faculty. It is a really unique and privileged position where we are not just teaching and giving you some readings to do and sharing our insights on those readings. It's important to know that the things that you're reading in classes at the university level were actually based on knowledge that was generated and created by academic scholars, by people with PhDs who teach in all of our Canadian universities and indeed in our international universities. So this is something that really differentiates our program from a college program, is because it's university based, there's actually a requirement for all of us faculty, all the full-time faculty, to engage in research. So we do research studies, we do work with young children, we generate published articles that go into courses and other people's classes at different universities. We, many of our faculty are contributing to the development of policy and absolutely to trying to impact practice in a broad range of child contexts in society. So I wanted to share that as a kind of context again for our school, but I'll just go through the other details here, and then we'll have a little peek at some of the faculty profiles so you get a sense of what I'm talking about. So in our school, we also have 2 laboratory schools. This is something that exists at some of the community colleges as well. And for us, we have 2 of them. One's focused on family and the other on childcare. But that just means that we have the opportunity to engage in that link between knowledge creation and application in the field right away. And our students have opportunities to work in these laboratory schools. Of course, in our program, field placements are very important. So while the School of Early Childhood Studies does encompass things beyond just education, and I don't want to say just education because education is the cornerstone of our program, we also have other aspects of childhood that we study here. And so in the field placements, there's opportunity to engage in a variety of different contexts of early childhood. So there's one field placement for every year of the program for a total of 4. And they represent working in different contexts with young children, including early learning child care contexts, as well as working in the school system, working with children with disabilities, and also a 4th-year option that involves quite a bit of choice, so that if you're hoping to be working in a health-related field, for example, you might be able to get a placement that matches that. So it's a very innovative and dynamic approach to getting you experience in the field. We also have fantastic staff. So you're only meeting 2 of them today, but we have a big team, and those members of our team are very dedicated to the school. Many of them have been with us for many years. Maria Burgos is one of them. And so she has such wisdom, and I don't want to embarrass her, put her on the spot, but honestly, she is a fantastic resource. And as the director, I'm always going to her with questions. And Jennifer Butterly, just because she's here and because Maria's here, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about them. Jennifer has contact with students all the time and is very conscientious about making sure that our students' needs are met. So we have these great team members who really care about our program and care about our school and care about the heart of our school, which is our students. So the whole program that we offer is really quite comprehensive in the sense that it's not just covering things that one would need to be, for example, an early childhood educator, but it's covering topics that go well beyond that. And on that note, I want to go back to this idea of the fact that we are early childhood studies, not early childhood education only. And I want to go into those faculty profiles. So let's have a peek then. And we can have a look here at this is our home page. So there you go, the School of Early Childhood Studies. And there I am. And then I have a lot of colleagues here. And I want to draw your attention to this page because you may want to go back to it later. And you may want to see the kinds of things that our faculty are interested in. And when they're interested in something, it means they're doing studies in it and they're writing lots of stuff about it. So it's pretty exciting. So my area is in language and literacy, as well as cross-cultural development. But my colleague, Dr. DeSanto, was looking at children's rights and looking at curriculum and actually that practice of early childhood education. We have other faculty members here, Donna, who's looking at aspects of health and how health and childhood are related. And it's interesting, Dr. Jagger's area of research is in environmental and place-based education. She has a big emphasis on the natural world. And if you think about what's going on with COVID right now, a lot of children are going into outdoor learning environments. So that's something that Dr. Jagger has a great interest in. There are a number of other faculty here. I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. So Dr. Berman looking at race in early childhood settings, as well as theoretical frameworks. Dr. Ali looks at colonialism and immigration. You can see how these topics are very big and very important, and they relate to the society that we live in. So all of these scholars are bringing really unique expertise to the program. So I just like to kind of scroll through and give you a sense. Fiona Mula is one of our more recent hires, looking at disability and chronic illness, and also using arts-based research, which is very interesting. So her methodologies include children's artwork. And Jason Nolan there with just a comical picture. You can read about Jason on the website and on the Faculty of Community Services website as well. And just to go through just the list, you can see all of these people here, so many of them, and they're all doing such interesting work. So that was one thing that I wanted to share with you. I'm going to go back to that slide and now have a little peek-see at our laboratory schools. So a laboratory sounds like, you know, you've got beakers and it's all about sort of hard science. But in fact, a laboratory school in the context of an educational program is related to a real environment that families or children would use. So here we have the Early On Center. We run our own Early On Center. Early On Centers are province-wide, and we have our own here in Early Childhood Studies. And it's part of what we call our Gerard Resource Center, where we accumulate a lot of materials for families to learn from, and we have programming. It's an opportunity for families in the area, in the downtown core, to come and speak with people and have their children engaged in activities and have access to resources. So one thing I want to mention at this point is that Krista Leader is the manager of our laboratory schools. And the reason we call it a laboratory school, even though it's an early on program, which doesn't seem to maybe make sense at first, is that we as faculty collaborate with Krista Leader and with the families and the children to do research. And so when families come, they know that this is a research institution and that they may be asked to participate in a study. And of course, they have the choice of whether to do that or not. But many families are very interested and engaged in being part of the process that helps us understand childhood better. So I'm going to go back then to the presentation and click the other lab school here so that you can all see. This one is called the I'll just scroll down, Ryerson's Early Learning Center. And I would actually like to play this video for you. I don't believe it's very long, so maybe I'll just go ahead and start that. And you can get a little bit of a sense of what our Ryerson Early Learning Center is all about.
We were motivated to develop and showcase the Joy of Inquiry documentation panels because we wanted to communicate and make visible to the Ryerson University community and the broader community at large the importance of the Early Learning Lab School, and through that the importance of education care in the early years, and for us as educators to promote the high quality programming for young children and families. So you're going to see in these narratives how the inquiries and learning experiences of the children are the beginning of the processes of learning that continue right into the university years. And in these narratives, these children, they're critical thinkers and problem solvers, scientists, artists, and they're the budding leaders who are really becoming lifelong learners. The process of creating the documentation panels took about 6 months. It was a frequent dialogue and discussion and self-reflection, very much a collaborative process with the director of the School of Early Childhood Studies, the manager, children and teachers at the Early Learning Center and faculty. And this whole process was for us to understand and refine the pedagogy of inquiry and the purpose of documenting teaching and learning processes.
As we worked on creating the documentation for the Joy of Inquiry panels, we came together as a staff to share some of the exciting learning that was happening in each of our classrooms. And as we shared, we started to realize the similarities in the inquiries of the children of the different age groups. And the big idea that was common amongst all the age groups was children exploring and discovering their sense of place in the world. Whether that was the toddlers discovering for the first time how to identify different landmarks in their environment, or the preschoolers making connections in how the transportation system connects the different places in their world, or the kindergartens who were mapping and building a 3D cardboard city that really represented their sense of place. The children's ideas evolved very quickly during our city project, and it was so important to keep up and to record the children's journey of inquiry to capture all the learning that was taking place. We took a ton of photos to document the progress of the children's cardboard creations, and this established this video record that enabled both us as the teachers and also the children to revisit and to reflect back on their work and explain the thinking as the project unfolded. We also took lots of notes and created transcripts of conversations with the children about the project. And these were essential to help us understand what the children were trying to learn about and what provocations we might provide next to extend the inquiry. And of course, as the project progressed, we had collected this great trove of artifacts, and we had the cardboard buildings themselves, as well as the city planning book that was written by the children to guide their construction, and lots of artwork and stories that the children had created about the city. And all of these items help to tell the unfolding story of the children's desire to learn about their place in the world and the city that they call home.
Okay, so that is giving you a little bit of a glimpse into this sort of innovative nature of our laboratory schools, that we are not really thinking about our early learning center as only a childcare center. We're thinking of it as a way to really develop new and exciting methodologies with children to understand childhood better. And it's not even always just about learning. It may be that someone who's like myself, who's interested in language development, and I have worked at the Early Learning Center, that I might have children tell me stories, and I may be trying to understand about their language development. So there are many ways in which those schools provide an opportunity for us to see visions of what we're thinking as scholars and as a community come to life. So it's a very exciting opportunity, and there's always new things going on at our laboratory schools. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is really address in a bit more detail this whole idea about early childhood studies instead of early childhood education. I've already told you about how our program as a 4-year degree program is a little bit different than a college program because we have the 4 years, first of all. So we do have a lot of time to cover more breadth, and because we have faculty who are knowledge creators. So they aren't just teaching, they're actually coming to you as, while I'm not so comfortable with the term, but experts in particular areas. They're definitely steeped in deep knowledge, and they have the ability to refer to their own studies and their own work. And it really is what makes a university program quite distinct and quite unique. Another aspect of that, though, is this concept of studies. So as you see with these little flags here, you've got education there in the blue flag on the left, but you've also got all of these other different flags here of different colors. And this isn't even a comprehensive glance, but it's to show really a lot of those research areas that I associated with the faculty earlier, and the fact that those are actually part of the early childhood studies curriculum. So we don't talk just about children. For example, children live in families. We talk about families, the diversity of families, and the kinds of institutions that support families, the kinds of challenges that families have. And we talk about other contexts of children's lives. For example, when children are engaged in anything related to healthcare and how do they feel and what are their perspectives. Donna Kohler studies that. We talk about important issues like child advocacy and child rights. Many of our students are interested in becoming child advocates or in working in some way in policy to help support the movement in Canada to protect children's rights and to really understand what that means. Of course, we already have children's rights protected in the country, but we haven't delved into a lot of the deeper understandings of what that means and how does it impact our institutions. What about equity? What about equity for children with disabilities? What about equity in diversity? Our children in Toronto are coming from a very, very broad range of backgrounds. And this is part of the essential lens that we use in early childhood studies in many of our courses across, whether they are applied courses related to teaching or if they are more theoretical courses. You'll see there up in the top right corner that theory is very important to our program, as well as research, the kind of work that actually gets done to create knowledge, as I was saying, with reference to all of my colleagues in our school. We also have liberal arts requirements. So students can, this is again part of a university degree where students can actually go out into the broader curricula of many different departments. It could be French, it could be history, it could be psychology, and people will take courses that will contribute in different ways to their program so that they can hone in on things that they're very much interested in. So that's just a glimpse really of our curriculum. And because you can see how broad it is, how broad these areas are, you can get a sense of why early childhood education isn't quite enough to be able to encapsulate what goes on. And indeed, we have students who are graduating and going off and doing a number of different things. So let me go into the next slide and talk a little bit about who our students are, and also talk about the pathways that they choose once they graduate, because I think that's probably something all of you are very interested in. So as you can see, we have a very large group of students, and they represent different ways of getting degrees through our program. And some of those are part-time. Some of those are actually coming from the college system after they've done their second year through a direct entry program. We also have students who are doing actually, I've noticed a typo. It says concurrent, it's actually consecutive program in education. And I want to leave that to Jennifer to clarify, because we do have an agreement with York University that I'll get to in a moment. So we are typically accepting approximately 170 first-year students each year. And these students all have different interests. Most of our students have some interest in education when they come, and most of our students will graduate and either go on to be an early childhood educator, or they will go on to Teachers College to become a teacher in primary, junior, or in kindergarten. And so those choices reflect the rich history of our school in terms of its origins in early childhood education, but other students will choose different paths. We have a graduate program, as you can see here, a master's degree in early childhood studies. Some of our undergraduates choose to go into that program. Perhaps they're interested in policy, for example, or other related fields to childhood that may not necessarily be education-based. Also, our undergraduate students will go into many different areas of interest, including master's degrees that are not here at Ryerson. Sometimes they may choose to go into a policy degree. We have a policy program here at Ryerson, or maybe they choose to go into an entirely different degree or do postgraduate studies to have training in particular sectors of social services relating to childhood. A lot of our students are interested in social work, actually. So very broad variety of things that our students go on to do. So just to give you this sort of overview, we do have, as I was saying, the 4-year full-time, and you saw that that's the bulk of our students who are in the 4-year full-time program. And our direct entry involves both full and part-time students. we do have a special partnership with George Brown College, and we share space with them actually. So I'm always seeing George Brown colleagues and students over at one of our buildings on Gerrard Street there. And as I say, there is the collaborative program between York University and Ryerson. And this program is quite unique because it offers our students the opportunity to go directly into a Bachelor of Education degree. And it is unique because of the fact that it is a separate stream. Our students aren't actually going to be competing with the regular other graduates who will apply to York University directly. And I'm also seeing now that I can see Jennifer's face, and I think that she's helping me out there. She's got my back. She's ready to step in and tell you a little bit about that program that she manages. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. You did a fantastic job, actually. So it's a 16-month program. So that's one of the other things that are really unique. Dr. Peets mentioned that it's only open for applications to students who are graduating from our program, which is really fantastic because it brings your competitive pool down from, thousands down to roughly about maybe 100, 150, depending on who's interested in applying. But the program runs 16 consecutive months back to back, and it begins in May, immediately following the completion of your final courses, which is in the winter. You finish them in April, you begin the consecutive program in May, and then it runs consecutively for 16 months, and you'll finish in the August, 2 Augusts after when you begin. So it's a really wonderful program. It's offered full-time on our campus. Right now, everything, of course, is happening virtually. But when everything is clear to be back on campus, then it'll be full-time on our campus after that. That's everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That's really helpful. We haven't gotten yet to this whole big question of remote learning and the impact on the program, but I will be covering that. So thank you for the introduction to that important way of looking at our school year now. It's a brand new thing for us all. So I want to talk a little bit about our curriculum and give you a little bit of detail in terms of what you could expect if you were to come to our school. So the core of our curriculum, as I've mentioned already, is early childhood education, or if it's not education, then it's work with children in other contexts. So we do have an academic and multidisciplinary childhood studies program. But the thing to remember in terms of the education focus is that when you graduate with your bachelor's degree from our program, you are indeed eligible to register with the College of Early Childhood Educators. So that is an important aspect of our curriculum that is something we've maintained despite broadening our curriculum over the years. Okay, so we follow the university tripartite structure, which is the core courses that are part of our program, directly part of our program, and taught by people who are early childhood studies professors, the people who I showed you pictures of at the beginning of the presentation. We also have liberal studies and professionally related courses. So the liberal studies requirement allows you to go, as I was saying earlier, beyond our school and into other departments in the university, into other programs in the university. And then the requirement for professionally related courses also allows you some breadth, but those courses are going to be more directly linked with childhood. So where in a liberal studies course, you may simply choose to take it's actually hard for me to think off the top of my head of a liberal studies course that is unrelated to childhood, because isn't everything related to childhood? But our professionally related courses are a shorter list that is specifically related to our curriculum and our programs. So anything through, for example, disability studies would be an important related course. Many courses in psychology, in sociology, that address aspects of childhood. We also do have minors available in a variety of subjects, subject areas outside of our programs. So as you can see here, that is really trying to cover quite a bit of breadth so that by the time you graduate, you have a very solid foundation, but you in early childhood studies, but you also have the benefits of a kind of liberal arts bachelor's degree that gives you a lot of flexibility in what you're going to do next. So let's look at some of those courses. So the core courses that are part of our program and are taught by our faculty include courses in child development, early years curriculum, family support, children at risk or with disabilities, field education, and research and policy. So that's quite a lot of breadth, and that's only in our core courses. My training is in developmental psychology, so I teach child development courses. Right now, I am teaching cognitive development, so the development of children's thinking. And I enjoy working with students on the big questions of how children are changing throughout the early years and the kinds of things, the remarkable kinds of things that they can do. In our child development program, we have, as you can see, a number of different aspects of development that students can learn about. And our early years curriculum, we cover all of the core areas of an early learning curriculum. So we have wonderful arts professors who look at arts and education. My area, again, I'll jump in here too, because I also work in literacy, so I teach that course as well. But as I mentioned earlier, children are not growing up in a vacuum. They're growing up in families. And so we want to consider these important contexts, and we certainly have courses, more than one course that is related to families, and we have our own courses related to disabilities, even though there's an opportunity to take more through the School of Disability Studies. And I've already spoken briefly to our field education focuses, and lastly in research and policy. So those students who want to go and do an academic master's degree, for example, or perhaps they want to work in a policy position in the government, this is a good opportunity for them to develop that core knowledge that will then hopefully lead to a master's degree and enable them to pursue goals in these more the sort of larger areas of research and policy. So this is just an example of some of our electives. And so you can see there that we have some required courses, but we also have these electives within our program that are really giving some students some choice in terms of the kinds of areas that they're most focused on or interested in. So you can see from that list that within our own school and the options that you have to take electives as part of our own early childhood studies curriculum are quite varied. Okay, so now I want to talk about that elephant in the room, which is the elephant of remote learning. I wanted to first acknowledge to everyone that I know this has been really hard, and I can't even imagine what it will be like to do my last year of high school in COVID-19. This is really, really unprecedented, and I want to commend you all for having the ability to adapt to that and being brave and putting your efforts into completing your high school so that you can come and join us here at Ryerson. We are very, very cognizant of the fact that the online environment for learning has created challenges and stresses for our students. So one of the things that we are trying to do now is, I'm actually in the process of planning it right now, is offer our students a lot of various different kinds of supports. And those include wellness sessions, they include opportunities to engage with graduates of the program and have that sort of personal interaction piece that is so hard to replace with a screen, as I talk to you now through a screen, right? So this is these are unprecedented times, and we, of course, for this academic year, are doing remote learning, and we think of it as emergency COVID-19 response learning. So we don't think of it as all of a sudden Ryerson is completely online. We have a part-time program that is comprised of many online course options, but we don't call our courses online because, well, you all saw what happened. All of a sudden, everybody had to change the way they did things. So right now, for this academic year, in the fall, as well as going into our winter term, we are engaged in trying to somehow capture what the things are that we do in the classroom face to face in an online environment. So what that has meant for us for this year is that we have a number of different approaches to engaging our students. So you've probably heard these terms a lot: synchronous versus asynchronous. And as students in the high school system, you're probably very familiar with this. So the synchronous piece is an interaction like we're having now, where you can actually have dialogue back and forth. I'm doing a formal presentation, but soon I'm going to stop and we're going to invite you to ask questions. So that synchronous piece enables conversation, right? The asynchronous piece is where materials are put online for our students, where students are doing their regular readings that they would do even if they were face-to-face, and opportunities to engage in course material in a slightly different way. So I'll say that, just to jump down through these lists, I'm going to talk a little bit about these terms with reference to the items in this list. So D2L, or Brightspace, is it's a platform, an online platform. So many of you may be using Google Classroom. So we don't use Google Classroom here. I think that D2L is much better, just between you and me and everybody else who's here, which is about 100 people. I've been using D2L. It's our learning platform. We've been using it for many years here at Ryerson, and it enables a whole lot of different ways of interacting. So many of us are using synchronous pieces like having a link to a Zoom session, but we may use asynchronous things through D2L, like having a link to a pre-recorded lesson. So in my course, for example, in cognitive development, students are both listening to a pre-recorded presentation where they can kind of pause me and take notes and so on. And then they're coming to a live session where we have the opportunity to have discussion and have questions and so on. But D2L enables us to have chat rooms, discussion boards, post information. Students submit their work through D2L. It has some similarities with Google Classroom, but as I said, I think it's much better. And it was designed at the University of Waterloo. So it's homegrown Canadian technology. Zoom, I think everyone knows about Zoom. We're on it right now. And many of us are using Zoom, but we're also aware of something called Zoom fatigue. So you would never find, even though there's a 3-hour requirement for a class in any given week here at Ryerson, if we are in this mode, this remote mode, which we hope will end after winter 2021, we will be restricting our use of Zoom. So you don't have to sit there for 3 hours facing a screen. So we also are having breakout sessions, many of our courses, which enables smaller group discussion. So those are some of the things that we're doing, and courses are going to differ from one to the other. But as I say, with a hopeful heart, we're not really planning that we're going to be online or doing remote learning next fall. We hope to be back in person and seeing all of our students and able to engage in the kinds of activities and interactions that we're all so used to doing and that make us laugh and make us smile and make our time together so fruitful and so pleasant and so enjoyable. So right now we're doing the best we can, and I try to to bring laughter into what I do online, and I hope my students are able to enjoy my course. So now I can talk very briefly about field placements, and I think I'm also sort of mindful of the time at this point, because I want to ensure that there's enough time for questions. So I mentioned about the different kinds of field placements that we have, and I'm just going to go into a little bit of detail here on that. So the care environment in the first year, this is in an environment like you're seeing in the picture here. That's one of our former students sitting at the table who now teaches as a part-time lecturer, I'm very proud to say. So there are children in our early learning center learning with her. Her name is Safra. And we also have other placements, as you can see in the other bullets there. So in the second year of the program, we do a community-based placement. And so that is actually similar to what I was talking about in our early on program that we run through the School of Early Childhood Studies. There are many early on programs all over, not just in Toronto, but ON stands for Ontario. So they're all over the province. And so opportunities to work with families in community settings is the focus of the second year placement. In third year placements, students have the opportunity to work with children with disabilities and gain knowledge of a diverse range of settings. And the last year is self-selected, and some people choose to do something with a research focus, other people choose to work in a healthcare environment, other people may want to work in an art gallery. Programming for children, there's so many different creative ideas, and students actually come up with ideas themselves and then create some kind of a partnership out in the broader society to go and work. We have had historically international placement. Right now, we're not running our international placement for obvious reasons, but that is a wonderful opportunity. And Jennifer Butterly is also the person who coordinates that program. So if you do have any questions about international placement, it is a fourth year placement, but it occurs in the summer before fourth year. So let's just say if you're coming into the program in the fall, then this really should be an option for you. So it's important to mention because we'll see the back of COVID long before then. So that's really all I have to share with you today. Thank you so much for joining. And I want to, Danny is here. I want to welcome Danny to that's great, from Faculty of Community Service. We also have our partners here from the Faculty of Community Services. So I'll just give the floor over to you, Danny, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you so much, Kathleen and team, for that really great presentation. We've had a big group of people behind the scenes answering questions, typing away, and a couple of questions have come up that we think would be good for the whole audience to hear. One of the questions is about placement and mental health. So we've had multiple people that are interested in mental health, and they're wondering what kind of placement opportunities exist around this particular topic in children.
That is such an interesting question and so timely with the times that we find ourselves in. All of us are really having to pay attention to mental health and wellness and support one another and care for one another. And this question is absolutely huge for young children. In our program, we have our emphasis is not so much on sort of therapeutic or counseling type of focus. So I wish that Martha Anapleotis was here as our field education coordinator to let you know about any placements that might relate to that. But one of the things that we are conscious of is that we have to make sure that we're preparing our students for placement sites where they've got the appropriate training and background for that. So I can't speak to any specific placements that are related to mental health. I believe we have some that would be probably more appropriately under the umbrella of wellness. But I would also say that for those students who are interested in well-being, mental health of young children, that because the fourth year placement is your choice, that through the program, if you're cultivating relationships with other sectors and you're able to make that connection yourself, then that may be a distinct possibility, because it would be in that fourth year placement that would fall. And so if you wanted to find out about perhaps things that students have done in the past, I would suggest getting a hold of Martha Anapliotis. And if I could call upon one of the members of our team to write Martha's email into the chat window, then you could copy and paste that and perhaps send her an email.
I don't think we're using the chat window, but perhaps we can put it on the slide. We can type it right now on the slides, Kathleen, so people can see it.
Okay, sure. Oh, right, that's right. We've got the Q&A going on, which is a little bit different. That's right,
Yes.
Denny. So
Yes.
I wish I knew it off the top of my head. I wonder if we could also email it out, but I wonder if one of the team remembers it off the top of their head, someone who's not doing a screen share, perhaps Maria or Jennifer, could you share Martha's email?
Yep.
Thanks,
It's
Jennifer.
Martha, MARTHA dot Anapliotis, ANAPLIOTIS at Ryerson.ca.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Another question has come up. There's a lot of students here that are interested in the direct entry option, and they are, it seems like they're on the fence about, should I take the degree? Am I good right now? So can you speak about some of the things that those diploma students would earn by attending the program and getting that bachelor's degree?
Okay, Danny. So this sounds like a question from students who are already in a diploma program. Okay, I see you nodding, so that's helpful. Thank you. Yes, so one of the things I did differentiate at the beginning was the sort of knowledge creation piece and the research focus and the theoretical focus that the university program has. The college programs, especially George Brown. I mean, we do have a special relationship with George Brown, so I can speak very highly of their program. But certainly, we have students coming into the program from many different community colleges, and what I find is that the students who are motivated to do that may be thinking down the line about next steps. After I speak, I'm going to ask Jennifer to chime in as well. But I think that we think about our next steps in this field as being perhaps having a higher level of credential to take on leadership roles in the field, to manage centers, for example. We also think about people coming into our program from a college program who may want to go on to another degree at some point, and that could be a faculty of education degree. So a lot of the direct entry students actually have that as a goal. And of course, to get into a faculty of education, you do need a bachelor's degree, a 4-year degree. So I think that aside from the sort of richness of the experience, which is what I like to emphasize in our 4-year program, there's also practical aspects to that as well. And I would like to turn it over to Jennifer because she can probably elaborate quite a bit.
Thank you, Kathleen. I actually think you did a really great job. I was
Thanks,
just going
Jennifer.
to say, yeah, I do. I was just going to say, so I manage the part-time degree program. And so I think almost all of the students have got their diploma in ECE, but I think that a large majority of students want to be able to teach beyond the kindergarten age level and teach primary junior. And so for that, you need to have your degree so that you can apply to a Bachelor of Education program. So that's sort of from my experience, but Dr. Peets did an excellent job of explaining that. So I think it just gives you, it opens more doors. It gives you, opportunities to pursue different postgraduate degrees if that's what you're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Great answer. And we realized time, and I'm very, very sensitive of time. So if you could maybe give a brief answer to this next one, which could be very large. But there, you touched upon, Kathleen, about the therapeutic or lack thereof nature of the program. So a few questions have come in asking a little more about that. So students that do want to get into counseling for children, that do want to get into those type of more social worky roles, would this be the right program for them?
That is a very good question. And actually at this point, Danny, I also want to highlight that we do have one of our current students, and I want to make sure that there's some floor time for David as a great ambassador of our program, who is in 4th year right now. So I'm going to be brief, and then perhaps we might turn the floor over to David. I would say that this probably would not be an appropriate program for people who are interested in counseling, and that social work would be a better fit. Child and youth care is another thing to explore, in the sense that child and youth care has a focus on child advocacy and in working at the grassroots level to support children who are at risk. Fabulous, fabulous field. We have a lot of formal and informal ties with child and youth care. So I think those would be perhaps better options for those students.
Amazing. Thank you. And David, if you can, first of all, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you summarize in a couple of sentences or a few sentences, what the culture as a student is like, and what your experience has been like in ECS?
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is David. I think these past 3 years so far have been really awesome, because I feel like the program gives me an opportunity to have a balance between theory and application. And I think the courses have really helped me learn about what it means to be an early childhood educator. And there's a lot of opportunity to be in different environments for placement, which is, I think, really helpful when you're looking towards future opportunities after you graduate. And I just think that the courses are really broad, like Kathleen said. They focus on a lot of different topics, and it kind of allows you to be able to expand your learning in a way. But yes, I think it's been really helpful to helping me figure out what I would like to do. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I just want to chime in and say that David is in my course now, and he was in a course with me before. And I'm also, I'm very proud of David just because he's a student leader. So people who really stand up in the program and lead their peers, and he's acting as an example to his peers and looking out for his peers. It's very inspiring, and I really, really appreciate that. So I just wanted to point that out. He's too humble to tell you himself.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for our presenters, students, and all of our staff and faculty who are behind the scenes answering all of the questions today. We are right at 1 o'clock on the dot. I know that we still have a few questions that are still in our chat or in our Q&A box, so we will remain online to answer all of those questions. So if there are any people who are still with us and have some final questions you need to ask, feel free to throw those in the Q&A pod now, and we will do our best to get to them as soon as possible. So thank you again for everyone who joined us. Like I said before, the Q&A pod will not be available with the recording. So if you did get a really amazing answer, which I know all of you did, and you want to remember it, please feel free to take a screenshot or copy and paste it into a document so that way you can refer to it later on. And if you have any final questions, like I mentioned, throw them in now. Otherwise, that's going to be it from us. What's going to happen is we will turn off our microphones and our cameras, and we will remain online, like I mentioned, until all of the questions are answered. And so if you don't see us on your screens, don't worry, we're still here. And then once all the questions are answered, we will shut things down. So thank you again so much. And on behalf of Ryerson University, we hope to see you in further sessions for the remainder of today and also next week as well. And hopefully you stay in touch with us if you have any other questions after the event is over. So thanks again, and I hope everyone has a great day.